Steve Austin on ABC Radio Brisbane.
I was nearly late getting back up to the studio this afternoon because I hurtled downstairs to the car park to have a look at a motorcycle. It looks a bit like an American police motorcycle or a highway patrol bike. And it's the ride of my guest. When you think about medical supplies or pathology samples and blood being transported, I assume it's sort of an ambulance or one of those cars that you see whizzing around. Imagine when you find out that a group of bikers, motorcycle enthusiasts, were volunteering their time to help out a system. There must be a fair bit of work on the system at the moment. So Peter Davis is the founder of Bloodbikes Australia. Peter, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
G'day, Steve. G'day, listeners. How you going?
It makes me think of like World War I and World War II, where they had blokes, on motorcycles carrying telegrams to and from the front or whizzing some vital instruction, back to the command post or something.
Well, in a way, in a funny sort of way, it's sort of the images we got in that time were of the UK, and it's actually a mate of mine in the UK that was volunteering for Bloodbikes in Scotland that actually got me into the whole idea of doing it in Australia. It's a different thing we do here in Australia is that in the UK it's part of the national health system. They are the front line. We didn't really need that in Australia because we had a very developed system whereby pathology and stuff got around. But where we did need it was that last resort. That when all else has failed and everything's gone to putty, we now give the pathology, the hospitals, the healthcare providers someone to call to get that blood or the pathology, and we've been particularly very busy with the COVID.
I'll bet. So tell me a story. What's happening at the moment? You get a phone call. What happens?
Righto. What happens is we've got 165 volunteers Australia-wide in all states and including ACT. We developed a system whereby it's a cloud-based system where all volunteers have editable access on a cloud and they can change their availability. Their availability is accurate all the time. All the healthcare providers that we work for or volunteer for, they have a read-only version. So it's quite simply, everything's gone to putty. That they didn't bring enough blood down for a surgery that's going to happen tomorrow morning at a hospital down at Redlands. What happens is they hit the link, see who's available, ring the blood biker who's available, and he jumps on his bike. He or she jumps on their bike and picks it up and delivers it. So
it's a specific sort of door-to-door instant delivery service staffed by volunteers.
Totally volunteers. It's a slightly weird situation because we're not actually an organisation. We're not a charity. We're not an organisation because two reasons. When I started it, there's so much stuff you have to go into for that. So what we are is we're a group.
Yeah, it's difficult volunteering for something these days, isn't it?
Well, it is, and we're a group of independent volunteers that all agree to quite a stringent set of rules. Now, they're the rules that bind us together, and they're the rules that are our commitment to each other and our commitment to the healthcare organisation that we volunteer for. We have no need for money because we volunteer everything. We volunteer our bikes, our times. We even pay for our own vests. So
what's the upside?
The upside is that you get to ride your bike and do good at the same time. Okay. And sometimes, I remember one time
riding a bike with a purpose, riding motorcycles with a purpose.
Exactly. I mean, one time I was taking a parcel of blood to Springfield, which is primarily a cancer hospital, Mater at Springfield, and the blood was for a emergency transfusion for a guy with leukemia. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I swear I was riding a hovercraft. I mean, I felt like $1 million, the whole time you're on there. It's just like...
Well, the feeling that you were actually helping someone sustain a life, live a life, improve their life.
And with exactly right. And with COVID, it's even more a lot of our deliveries. We've done 250 deliveries since I started just over 12 months
If
ago.
only the Comancheros or the Rebels or, one of those might have thought, instead of causing trouble, we could actually help someone, Still wear the colours,
Well,
Comancheros, we're here to help.
We'll take anybody, but they've got to agree to the terms, and there is a code of conduct there. And
Right, okay.
The big thing about COVID for us was that I think it's psychologically very good for all of us to be part of the fight, as opposed to be watching everything on the sidelines. To actually have a tangible part of the fight against COVID, and there's so many testing stations popped up. Well, all of the MARTA and all of these places can't just invent time. So where they have a pop-up come up, they quite often will do a roster. It's cool.
How many riders have you got?
We've got 165 riders Australia-wide.
Wow, okay.
Now, at this moment, we have 100 that are fully qualified and active. In Queensland, we have 67 riders from Townsville to the Queensland border, and out as far as Toowoomba and Toogoolawah. We even have a volunteer in Toogoolawah. Yeah.
Are you keeping busy at the moment? Is there much demand?
The thing with us is that we are a last resort. We don't want to take anyone's job, and we don't want to interfere with any commercial arrangement. But what we do want to do is so that when I was going to say something rude, then I can't say that on radio. When the balloon goes up. That's when the balloon goes up, or if the fan is hit by
whatever
manure, they've got someone to call. That's the big thing. And so ultimately, when you volunteer for Bloodbikes Australia, it's not a particularly arduous demand. You're in control of your availability. When you're available, you're in control of it. However, when you do get called, they really need you. It's really quite urgent.
When you turn up at the hospital with the goods, what do the hospital registrar or nursing staff say?
Well, part of the process is that every Bloodbike Australia volunteer has to have a nationally recognised blood transport certificate. Part of that's the learning that goes with that certificate is actually more relevant than the actual exam, because it actually sets up the parameters that you've got to do for whatever you're taking. And part of that is, when you go up, you're identified. You're wearing your vest, which are all exactly the same, all made from the same place.
So the Bloodbikes colours are actually a high-vis vest.
Exactly. And the logo is one I stole from Bloodbikes Manchester because with their permission, but because I was able to easily at home remove Manchester and put Australia underneath.
Okay.
Also, I love the symbolisation of the wings and the bike and all that. But we turn up.
You really want to be a World War I courier, don't you? There you are on a Bruff Superior doing a Lawrence of Arabia impersonation.
Exactly. But I've even got one volunteer that's got a postie bike. So we don't care anybody. We've got a volunteer with a Moto Guzzi in case you're thinking of actually doing it, Steve.
Moto Guzzi's rule, yes.
We have Indians. We have Harleys. I've got an 80-year-old. One of my volunteers is sharp as a tack, is an 80-year-old Harley rider from the Sunshine Coast. He did a run the other day a COVID run from Buderim to the MARTA because one of the things you don't know is that Queensland has really been the centre of the film industry in the world over the COVID period, because very early in the piece they set up a setup where every person on set must be tested every day for COVID, which meant that it created a safe bubble, to use the term that everyone uses. Of course, you can't just, as I said, invent time. You can't all of a sudden. So what happened was we were able to, down at the Movie World, we for 3 weeks we had a roster of blokes and girls that went and picked up the samples and took them to the lab at the MARTA. Now.
So there were blokes on Harleys. Everyone thinks it's the Rebels or the Finks, but they're blokes on Harleys riding back and forth between the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and they're actually delivering samples.
That's exactly right. Delivering samples. And you might say, well, what's the story there? And I say, well, the whole point is that by us doing that, it's a two-sided coin.
Yep.
Not only do we get the results more quickly because there's not a huge number of samples at one time collecting, but also we help the flow of testing. So we make it faster for the results to come through.
I'll let you go and do your work. Thank you so much for telling me the story. I was intrigued when I heard it because my producer told me. I said, I've never heard of these guys. Who are they? What's their territory? What's their colours? Peter, congratulations to you and the rest of the team. Thanks very much for coming in and telling the story.
Thanks, Steve.
It's founder of Bloodbikes Australia, Peter Davis.